Heard your interview earlier. You met P. Diddy and Jay-Z. Is that the coolest moment? Is that the coolest moment?
Well, these two went to a gangster party. Yeah, full of watches and big.
I had that with P. Diddy. I went over to say hello to P. Diddy, and Jay-Z was there, and Leonardo DiCaprio was sat at the
I think you've dropped enough names.
Room, 2 floors below and directly below, and saw the body fall through. Looking out the window, saw the body fall, and obviously heard the aftermath.
He would always message me ever since we broke up, like, oh, I'm not well. He would always play with death and be like, well, I'm gonna die. I'm not doing well.
There's some stuff that I've definitely never spoken about to do with it that was really severe. It was only until I saw myself after that I was like, right, I need to fix myself. So at a certain point I thought, well, I'm gonna have a party for one. And that just seemed to carry on throughout.
Fell 3 floors from a hotel balcony. Pictures then taken inside showed the damage he'd done and the empty packets of over-the-counter drugs, saying he'd been drinking and taking drugs alone in his room.
Hold on tight, because what I'm about to share will blow your mind. If you thought Liam Payne's tumble was just an awkward accident, think again. The buzz on the street suggests Diddy might be wrapped up in this mess. Now, I know you're probably thinking, what does Diddy have to do with Liam's tumble? I was just as confused, but by the end of this video, you'll be connecting dots you didn't even know existed. Get ready to dive deep into celebrity territory, where what we find might completely flip your perspective.
Get him to the Greek, I'm going to go over there and say hello to him. So I thought, P. Diddy. So I went out to shake his hand. And I shook his hand and he just was, oh, nice to meet you. And he's just going, but the longest handshake ever. He did his eyes like, when is this going to end? and then the worst of it happened. There was a whole thing with Jay-Z and I went to lean in to speak to him. But you can't lean in to speak to Jay-Z. You're not allowed to.
Let's rewind to the night of Liam Payne's infamous fall. You might think it was just another star-studded party, right? Wrong. This event was shadier than a beach palm tree, and Liam was right at its center. From the moment he walked in, something felt off. The talk on the street is he was acting strangely. 1 minute, all smiles, working the room, and the next, he's off in a corner, looking over his shoulder like he's expecting someone to jump out. And the people he was chatting with? Let's just say, they weren't his usual crowd. Now picture this. Liam's making his way across the room, drink in hand, when, bam, he goes down hard. But here's the kicker. Was it really a slip? Some say it looked more like a push than a stumble, and not just a little nudge either. It was a shove that sent him flying.
Payne, the 31-year-old, died after falling from a 3rd-story hotel balcony in Buenos Aires, Argentina. In a statement, they said in part, quote, "We're completely devastated by the news of Liam's passing. In time, and when everyone is able to, there will be more to say. For now, our thoughts are with his family, his friends, and the fans who loved him alongside us. We will miss him terribly. We love you, Liam." Signed Louis, Zayn, Niall, and Harry. Meanwhile, there are troubling new details surrounding his death. A preliminary autopsy report reveals the singer died from multiple traumas and internal and external bleeding.
And the whispers from that party? They're louder than a drill sergeant shout. Witnesses saw things that make you say, like how Liam was in a heated chat with some people in suits just before his fall, or how certain guests disappeared faster than free samples at a store right after Liam went down. And here's where it gets suspicious. Why did certain people vanish so quickly? We're talking big names, the kind who normally stay until the very end. But that night, gone in a flash. And as for the security footage, rumor has it went blank for about 10 minutes, right around the time of Liam's fall. Coincidence? I think not. And here's the bombshell. Remember those suits Liam was talking to? Turns out, one of them works for a certain music mogul we all know, Diddy. That's right. The first piece of evidence linking this mess to something bigger just landed in our lap.
Very popular singer, part of the band One Direction. Most people know him from that. But he fell from a hotel balcony several feet up in Buenos Aires. And now there is a 911 call that's offering more details about what actually happened. We have the clip right here. I'm going to play it for you. It's in Spanish, but you'll be able to see the translation here as well. Let's look at this clip.
Hola, buenos días. Recién llamé que se me acordó. Llamo del Hotel Casa Sur Palermo, Costa Rica 6032.
¿Qué sucede en el lugar, señor?
Bueno, tenemos un huésped que está sobrepasado de droga y alcohol y cuando está consciente está rompiendo toda la habitación y bueno, necesitamos que manden a alguien, por favor.
Bajo efectos de alcohol y estupefaciente, ¿no, señor?
Sí, correcto.
Me dijo Costa Rica, ¿qué altura, señor? Discúlpeme.
Costa Rica 6032.
Esto pertenece a Capital, ¿no? Entre Arevalo y Kramer.
Sí.
¿Hotel me dice? ¿Cómo se llama el hotel?
Casa Sur, Palermo. Y necesitamos que nos envíen a alguien urgente porque, bueno, yo no sé si corre riesgo la vida del huésped. Está en una habitación que tiene balcón y, bueno, estamos un poco con temor de que haga algo que le ponga en riesgo
¿Hace
su
cuánto que
vida.
está ahí o es un hotel de vivienda?
No, es hace 2 o 3 días que está acá.
Comprendo, no sabría ningún dato porque no pueden ingresar, ¿no?
No,
Notificamos a lo que es el personal de SAME. También, ¿escuchó?
sí, lo que yo te pido es que venga alguien urgente.
Now, a lot of information coming in there. They know he's destroying the room, but they can't get in. And they also mentioned the balcony, which is kind of weird. Why are they worried about? Did something get mentioned through the door? A lot of details still coming in, but this is the room. Allegedly, this is the room. And now TMZ, or I guess it's New York Post, reporting, showing some images of the destruction from the room. So that is apparently what happened, is he was destroying this room. I can't show you all the paraphernalia that's all over, but there was paraphernalia on the floor. I imagine they'll be all over, breaking down what, fingerprints, etc. I don't see anybody trying to imply any sort of foul play. But yeah, he was trashing the room before the balcony fall, and the hotel staff clearly was worried, knowing there was a balcony there, that it could get worse. That call was before.
Before you start thinking Diddy's just an innocent bystander, let me spill some piping hot tea. Why has the music mogul been quiet on social media lately? And more importantly, where's his private jet been flying to? Diddy's been laying low on Instagram, but his private jet's been racking up miles like a marathon runner, hopping from one remote location to another, all under the radar. And you know the saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. And here's another twist. Those business deals Diddy's been working on? They're looking a bit unusual. Sources close to him say he's been canceling meetings and shuffling investments as if he's prepping for something big, or maybe trying to cover his tracks. And those late-night studio sessions? It's not just music getting made. Word is he's been having intense talks with major industry players, including some familiar faces from Liam's circle.
No, what we've heard in that 911 call is that the hotel staff feared for Liam's safety. It's not necessarily their responsibility to intervene, but they turned to those whose responsibility it would be. In one sense, this is an all too familiar scene, a pop star alone in a hotel, perhaps turning to alcohol or other substances, but also inflicting a little damage on the hotel room. That's one thing we've learned from that 911 call. And that's a familiar story. What happened next and what ultimately happened, the tragedy of what happened, well, it's a little too familiar, but it is not the way things usually go. And it's devastatingly sad. Devastatingly sad because this 31-year-old man leaves behind a 7-year-old child and, as we were hearing earlier, has been famous for more than half his life and globally famous. This is a huge loss for a very engaged generation of pop fans.
And I think what's also clear is that he himself was very open, and we saw a bit of that in Max's report about his struggles in the past with addiction, with mental health, with bullying online, with some abuse. It sort of highlights the fact that you can be incredibly famous, successful, wealthy, beautiful, but in the end you're still human and you still have a human heart, and you can still really struggle and feel very alone at times.
That is all too true. We're talking about someone who, as a child, struggled with health issues. He had kidney problems. At 12 years old, took up boxing because of bullying he had suffered at school. So in some sense, what he talked about, the bullying he felt online once he was an adult and a star, the sense of isolation, his mental health struggles, his substance abuse struggles, These were things that had been with him for quite some time. It is all too true that although pop stars are enormously famous and adored by millions and millions of people, they are often very isolated. They're under intense pressure. They're subject to extreme isolation and great deal of boredom, and it is very, very difficult for these young people.
Yeah, I think there's a message in there very quickly about the pressure that's put on children, quite frankly, in this industry, but in other industries, and whether or not, particularly when things end, and obviously the band broke up many years ago now, but what happens when some of that fame dissipates, some of the success dissipates, but you're still a person of interest. But also I think they need to reach out to anybody around you that you know could be struggling, whether they're calling you or not.
I think that's absolutely right. This is a pop star, and this is someone who is enormously famous and wealthy and still struggles with these issues. But we see many people around us in our lives, in our families, who struggle with similar issues. And we do need to reach out to those people at moments like this. It's a particularly vulnerable and difficult time for those who might struggle with depression, who might struggle with some substance abuse issues, when someone famous has tragically passed in this manner.
Now, you might be wondering what all of this has to do with Liam's fall. Well, here's where it gets juicy. A pattern is emerging, and it's pointing right back to Liam. Every time Diddy makes a move, something seems to happen in Liam's world. It's like they're connected, two sides of the same coin. But hold on, I'm about to drop a bombshell. Just hours before Liam's fall, Diddy held a secret meeting. And this wasn't some casual catch-up, it was a closed-door, high-security affair. The kind that makes you wonder what's really happening behind the scenes. And get this, one of the attendees? The same suit who was seen arguing with Liam just before his fall. Coincidence? In this industry, nothing is ever a coincidence. It's all calculated moves, and Diddy may just be the puppet master behind the scenes.
Happened. So super tragic. Again, no foul play, I think, but we're still trying to figure out, was this accidental? Did he do it on purpose? Was he on stuff that made him do it? Where did he get these substances is another big question. Many outlets trying to figure out and secure the dealer, like who gave this to him. So there's still a lot of questions regarding that. Fans are now also livid at his ex-girlfriend. Reports coming in from people saying that he was extremely overwhelmed by legal issues with his ex, Maya, before his death. And now One Direction fans are harassing her, saying it's her fault. It's getting pretty ugly there. She, didn't help matters by calling it out and making it a thing on her TikTok literally days ago, talking to the One Direction haters directly, calling them out. I hate TikTok. It never plays when you need it to play. But there it is. She was calling them out, saying, you don't know the full story, so you can't chime in on this.
And kind of break it down. So I've been seeing ones like this everywhere.
Ones, they're called.
Honestly, ones that say she needs to keep his name out of her mouth. She's obsessed, blah, blah, blah. They broke up years ago. Well, I made a 5-second TikTok about something he talked about on a podcast.
I don't even get on this. Leave her alone. Leave her alone. You can have your feelings on this, but this is where it's now getting uglier. More and more posts regarding this issue. It's just really depressing. It's depressing because this kid had a 7-year-old kid. And obviously depressing because he was only 31 years old. And on his birthday this past August, he talked about his son, who he shares with a separate ex, Cheryl Cole. I didn't get any dad socks yet, but I'm going to speak to my son in a little bit, which I'm really excited about. Bless him. He didn't really ever show his kid, but he always talked to the fans about his kid. Clearly very in love with his boy. He's so big now. He's a big boy, and he looks like a mini me, as if we need any more me in the world. But clearly very in love with his son. Here we are now, Daddy, bless him, made me want to cry. He said something really cute this week, because I can see a lot of myself in him. He was like, "Oh, we need here now, Daddy, bless him, made me want to cry." Look, that's awful, man. It's awful how this is going to affect the kid and so many others. This man was way too young. It's so tragic what he got caught up in. Addiction really is a killer. It's so bad. It's so hard to break down. and get out of. And I feel for him. I will wait for more information to come in, but this clip is hard to deny. So many of you have been sending it to me. Again, I don't think there's any connection here personally, but it's just haunting and eerie to see this clip now, knowing all we did as we look back at Liam and things he said. Let's watch.
I had that with P. Diddy. I went over to say hello to P. Diddy, and Jay-Z was there, and Leonardo DiCaprio was sat.
All right, I think you've dropped enough names. I think people thought Prince and Brian Ferry was good. We don't need to hear about other people who are in the room. Just stick on the people the story's about.
Wish this guy would shut up. It's almost like he's saving Leo, which we're going to talk about in depth later today and tomorrow at Friday, 12 noon Eastern on members only section here and on Patreon. We're going to talk about Diddy and Leo. You're not going to miss it. I'll put more details in the pinned comment in the description, so check it out. Also, part 2 of our interview with Dale about Leo. Again, you're not going to miss these two. We'll talk about this as well. I digress. Let's go back to the clip.
So I went over and I thought, I was trying to think who's the easy target in this scenario. Who's the one that you go to say the hello? And I'm thinking, I saw him in Get Him to the Greek. I'm going to go over there and say hello to him. So I thought, P. Diddy.
To Diddy.
So I went out to shake his hand. And I shook his hand and I was, oh, nice to meet you. And he's just going, but the longest handshake ever. And I'm like sat there just looking in P. Diddy's eyes like, when is this going to end? And then the worst of it happened. The worst of it happened. There was a whole thing with Jay-Z and I went to lean in to speak to him. But you can't lean in to speak to Jay-Z. You're not allowed to lean in. And his bodyguard just like shoved me like this. And I went flying across the room. And I was like, right, I'm just going to go and sit over here with Eddie Golden. Thank you, that's enough. Very awkward moment.
Strange, man. This is strange. Evil laugh. Fearful of Diddy. When are you going to let go? What's going on? All these things now, knowing what we know, are definitely creepier. There's just a... And then, yeah, everybody seems to know. Yeah, Diddy's weird. Diddy's creepy. But you can almost hear an innocence here from Liam, where he's just like, are you going to let go? What's going on? Not knowing what we know now through all these lawsuits, allegedly, where Diddy would be almost, I can't say the word, but, you know, searching for the right person to see who's down. Are you DTF? Or can I just have my way? That's the things we're learning, and it does seem like this clip sort of implies he got away. Thank God to hear that. But watching this now, after knowing of the tragic loss, it makes the whole thing just a lot more.
You might think it's all about fame, but in this game, it's always about the money. What if I told you a certain record label's been feeling the heat from Liam's recent success? He's been making waves in the industry, signing deals, and even stepping into production. But not everyone's happy about it. Rumor has it that one of Liam's big deals fell apart at the last minute. We're talking millions on the line, a contract that was supposed to skyrocket him to the top. But right before it could be finalized, someone pulled the plug hard. Not only did they say no, but they shut it down like it was never even on the table. And here's the twist. Right after Liam's fall, some suspicious money moves started happening. We're talking about cash bouncing around faster than you can say, show me the money, with large sums landing in offshore accounts.
A hotel manager reportedly called 911 and reported that there was a guest who was at the hotel who was overwhelmed with drugs and alcohol. That was the way it was described. He was smashing up the hotel room and they needed assistance. So this was an emergency type call. The operator questioned the claim about drugs and alcohol being involved, but the manager seems to insist that there are drugs and alcohol, this guest is out of control, and we need help and assistance here. Then expressed concern that the guest's life was at risk, noting that the individual had been staying in the room for 2 to 3 days. This is Liam who they're talking about, and mentioned that the hotel balcony was a concern. So you can imagine that maybe the scenario is playing out and he's threatening perhaps jumping from the hotel balcony. So a very, very serious sort of frenetic call in these final moments. And by the time the cops arrive, Liam had fallen or jumped to his death from that 3rd floor room. It was about 40 to 45 feet high, and he perished from the injuries that he sustained during that fall. we're getting a picture that's starting to be painted,
Right.
right, Charlie? Like, we've heard that witnesses in the lobby beforehand saw him behaving erratically, smashing a laptop, maybe having to be escorted up to his room because he was causing a scene in the public lobby, carried up, escorted up. In any event, he was not in the right headspace in the moments before his death. This seems to lend credibility to the idea that this was an impulsive act rather than something that was considered for a long time, which suggests that drugs and alcohol may have been involved. He battled these demons.
Right. I mean, yeah, he did battle these demons publicly for years. And he had, friends and family and girlfriends and ex-girlfriends talking about their concern for the pop star who had obviously was going down a path. And he himself, would talk about death and just just existential type, he didn't think he was going to be around forever, apparently. And so,
he was really a tormented artist,
Yes,
right? And he
yes.
had discussed openly, as you said, I think he described them as severe suicidal thoughts.
Mhm.
At a point in time, he had done a stint in rehab where he had maybe straightened out for a period of time. But this was a constant struggle for Liam. He was also one of the principal songwriters for One Direction. And sometimes artists, their greatness comes from this kind of torment and turmoil, and that's where the creativity is drawn from. So you can imagine this sort of tortured artist writing these lyrics and just sort of wrestling with a lot of issues that he was able to, channel into art. And sometimes it gets the better of you.
So the cops arrive, having responded to a call about Liam being aggressive. And they arrive at the hotel and it's too late. He's already dead. What happens from there? They go and they see that they can't revive him. People at the hotel, I imagine, are shocked. What happens around the scene, when this happens?
Yeah, look, Buenos Aires is a developed part of the world. I mean, they have the same or similar protocols that we have in the United States. First responders will come. There have been photos of setting up a perimeter around what is the scene of the event. They obviously cover up the body down there, but there's a lot of hotel guests, and there's going to be lurid pictures and witness accounts of this because it was done in such a public setting. Buenos Aires is a huge city. There was nothing they could do to revive him, apparently, from the injuries that he sustained from the fall. Maybe serious blunt force trauma, head injuries, things of that nature. His death was likely swift, and there was nothing that they could do. And now there will be an investigation. I mean, they have to do an investigation. We'll hear more details come out from the police and so forth, so they can determine the cause of death. Because as you said, a fall, a jump, they're treating it as an apparent suicide at this point. That's what all of the evidence to this point shows. No foul play or anything of that nature. But it does remain to be seen. You have to sort of continue to follow this story, and that's why I think the coverage will be important to sort of keep up with.
But wait, it gets better. That record label I mentioned? They're not just feeling the heat, they're practically melting. Liam's recent moves could shake up the whole industry, and not everyone is thrilled about a rising star stirring the pot. Let's connect the dots. On one side, we have Diddy with his secret meetings and jet-setting lifestyle. On the other, there's Liam with his career-changing moves.
And in between?
A whole lot of money changing hands. We're talking about transfers connecting companies linked to both Diddy's empire and Liam's projects. Coincidence? Please. And here's the bombshell. Within 24 hours of Liam's fall, an eye-watering amount of money moved around, enough to buy a private island, with change left over for a yacht.
One last thing to add about as TMZ has been reporting on this, shame on TMZ. Just want to properly call TMZ out because we saw this. We broke this yesterday. We broke this news while we were live. It was happening. We got it. Actually, people were telling us rumors before it even went on TMZ, which is usually calls. I'm not trying to take credit for it, but I say that because we saw it happen live on the show yesterday, where as TMZ was breaking the news with this very article, they showed pictures of his body on the floor. It was disgusting. Absolutely disgusting of TMZ. And there's a lot of outrage online, as there should be. TMZ has now quietly removed those images. They're like, well, we just showed the arm to show you that it's his tattoos to confirm it. It's like, bro, you don't show anybody's body who's unalived on the floor, even just a part of it. That's disgusting. They have no shame, TMZ. They're the worst. They've now thankfully removed it, but still talking about it in here. TMZ has seen a photo. You showed the whole world the photo showing his body on the deck. You can clearly see his tattoos. And the previous version, which we had in our live out of accident because we didn't know what we were looking at, shame on them. They are disgusting. They have no remorse, no shame. I think legally they did finally remove it because they realized, oh crap, we can't show that. But shame on them. And sending so much love and positivity out to Liam's family, friends. This is just a heartbreaking loss that so many are still very shocked by. A lot of reactions pouring in. In fact, we just got notice as we were here, AGT, I guess BG, Britain's Got Talent is now canceled. Now, for those that don't know, they were discovered through, I guess it was the X Factor, Simon's other show. Yeah, he's now obviously, it's a loss for all these guys. It's a super big loss. This is a really sad day. This kid was way too young. I call him a kid. 31 still to me a kid, younger than me. He had so much life left. So many fans out there wanting to support him, and he was clearly struggling behind the scenes. There are clips of him now talking about how he held it well. I send so much love to his family, especially his son. This is a sad day. There's not much else to say about it. Just my condolences, and I leave you with a moment of silence.
8 figures is serious cash, but it's nothing compared to the weight of a guilty conscience. There's a witness out there who's been holding on to a secret so heavy it's breaking them. When it comes out, it'll shatter everything we thought we knew. This person was at that party, lurking in the shadows, and they saw it all. Every glance, every whisper, every shady handshake. At first, they were terrified, too scared to speak. But now, the truth is ready to burst out. This witness claims they saw Liam being cornered by Diddy's crew, looking more uncomfortable than a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. And right before Liam's fall, they swear they saw one of Diddy's associates slip something into his drink. If that's not a twist, I don't know what is.
Photos shared with ABC News by UK news outlet ITN appear to show drug paraphernalia and a smashed TV inside Payne's hotel room. Plus, in a 911 call, a hotel manager calls for help, saying there's a guest who's drunk on drugs and alcohol, breaking everything in the room. And he says he's fearing for the guest's life because of the balcony. Fans the world over are now in mourning. And Eyewitness News reporter Ashley Mackey joins us now with more on that. Ashley?
As teenagers, Liam Payne and the rest of One Direction burst on the scene back in 2010 on the show The X Factor. Since then, the British pop boy band has seen international stardom. Now, with the announcement of Payne's passing, fans all across the world have been reacting to this sudden loss. After the news of Liam Payne's death, fans in Argentina gathered at Casa Sur Hotel, sang his songs, and laid out flowers as a memorial to the global star. And a day later, fans are still reeling. We spoke with one woman in LA who grew up listening to the band.
I didn't believe it. I was very shocked. I had to look through multiple sources just to confirm that it's true.
Psychiatrist Dr. Evita Limon Rocha wants people to know that feeling sad is perfectly normal. She says even though we may not know the person, it's the music that connects us.
Different artists and different musicians are there with us as we grow and feel and experience life. So it makes a lot of sense that when someone that had such an impact with their art, that had such an impact on our own memories, that we feel an emotion or have an emotional response to their passing.
Many fans like Bianca say they didn't believe the news at first.
I think that I was very shocked and just surprised because he's so young, and I think that it kind of puts into perspective like how many years it's been since One Direction and like, oh, we're all older now.
Dr. Evita says the grief may come in waves, and while this is normal, it's important to be mindful of the ways we cope.
We may feel loss in a lot of different ways, and that's okay. However, if we ever feel that grief is impacting our well-being or impacting our relationships or our work or our school, then it's important to reach out for help.
Dr. Evita also mentioned something else unique to the times, social media. She says it's important to check in with ourselves and take those social media breaks as...
But hold up, it gets juicier. This witness hasn't just been sitting on the truth. They've been gathering evidence like a detective. Photos, videos, recorded conversations, you name it, they've got it. They even have text screenshots where Diddy's crew discusses handling the Liam situation. And if that's not shocking enough, there's an audio recording of someone who sounds suspiciously like Diddy himself, talking about putting Liam in his place. Now, I know you're wondering why we should believe this witness. But honey, their testimony is about to flip this scandal upside down. This isn't just about what they saw that night. It's about the connections they've uncovered. And here's the kicker. This witness isn't just a random partygoer. They have ties to both Liam and Diddy, going back years. They've been playing both sides long enough to know everyone's secrets.
It might have been an impulsive act, but, clearly he had demons for a long time. And what I think people are going to be picking apart, rightly or wrongly, is a lot of what Maya Henry has said to, on podcasts, on her own social media. She was, talking very, she was giving a lot of details about Liam that maybe he wouldn't want out there. She had just released a book that was a fiction, but it was a fiction because she says it was based on a true story. She changed the names, she changed the places, and it was about, a pop star who went from clean cut to drug addicted, and some of the stuff she says in her story, or I don't know, shocking. And she also talks about...
the fiction is thinly veiled. They were a known couple, so he could have felt like everyone's going to know it's me. The walls are closing in on me, and that can be an overwhelming feeling for a young person.
And she talks about how he didn't want the book to come out, and he also, all of these just things in his private life were starting to come out more and more, especially with the cease and desist. God knows what else is going to happen. She talks about how he would raise death to her as almost, at the time, and the time was only a few days ago, she said she thought it was a manipulation tactic, which I think is quite understandable. She took that he was saying, I'm going to die soon, to her as so that he would get something out of her, or that he would just control her more. And I think I really do understand her having that reaction at the time. Looking back on it now, maybe he was really trying to tell you something, but I don't think, a lot of the internet, I think, is unfairly coming for Maya.
We have to be careful how we talk about this. She's going to wrestle with a lot of emotion. She knew him very well. This was someone she was engaged to be married with. Even if they had a messy breakup at one point, they loved each other very deeply, by all accounts. And so, assigning blame and all of these things, which the internet is quick to do, and I'm sure she will be going through it, is just awful. It really is. For her to endure that in the midst of this, people end their lives for various reasons, but, blaming another person, there's a lot going on in a person's head. And so I think that's pretty reckless, and, we shouldn't engage in it, and we don't, but it is out there. This is the way this story is going to be reported. This is the way media, and so people are going to have access to this, and I think it's responsible to sort of always contextualize that he just had a very complicated life. He really did.
Right, and a really sad part of it is just he leaves behind a son, Bear, who's 7 years old. He had with Cheryl Cole, who's also a famous singer over in England. And I mean, as every dad does, I mean, he loved that kid. He talked about how much, his favorite thing in the world was driving that kid to school and dropping him off. And it's just...
Yeah, we're both parents. We can really relate to that element of it. You have a young kid, and it adds to the tragedy here for sure.
And a lot of sort of celebrities and famous people in general are coming out and reacting to this. Simon Cowell, who was obviously responsible for putting One Direction together in the first place.
I mean, he was the paternal figure behind the band. They started on X Factor.
Right.
He assembled them together to become this mega sensation. And they really were in the 2010s. No one was bigger than One Direction. They've canceled his taping of Britain's Got Talent, another show where he tries to spot the next big talent. I mean, this is Simon Cowell's thing. And I imagine he sees these kids sort of as his surrogate children, right?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we've heard from Ty Dolla $ign, Charlie Puth, Paris Hilton, Zed, Juicy J, Shawn Mendes, Joe Exotic has weighed in. But
all of the comments, though, are loving sort of remembrances of Liam, because what happens, regardless of how things end, you strip away sort of the negativity, and there's just sort of all that's left is sort of fondness at this juncture. So it's a very, very sad story. We should go to some comments. I mean, people are reacting to this story. So
yeah, so I mean, we've been going live and people have been leaving their comments about Liam Payne today. Ms. Courtney Renee talks about how mental health matters
And yeah, it's going to be a big issue going forward. This is going to bring that into sharp relief, right?
Yeah.
People are going to think about drugs, alcohol, and mental health and that whole issue for a period of time as they process this.
MM talks about how these must have been really terrible final moments for Liam Payne. I mean, you got that podcast Last Days. This is his last day. Seemed like it was, you know, a bit torturous.
Terrible. I mean, that comment says it all in 3 words. When you hear that 911 call, it's impossible to think of this as anything other than awful.
And finally, Tanya Dolphy says, we never know what is on a person's mind when they do something. We can't judge anyone. Very true. I mean, looking at the final videos of him in Argentina, at his hotel, smiling, interacting, singing, being like the celebrity that fans want. You know, if you run into your favorite celebrity, you want them to be like Liam Payne outside that hotel. Like, he was so lovely. Yeah. And for him to be going through something so dark, you know, probably, you know, using drugs potentially around that time.
The age really strikes me as I become sort of the elder statesman here. I think, man, if I could just be there and pull him aside and say, you're 31. This is the prime of life. This is like supposed to be the decade where you've got success a little bit, you have a little money in your pocket. Everything is in front.
We're just scratching the surface of this Liam and Diddy drama. The tea is boiling, and it's spilling everywhere. With secret meetings, shady money moves, and a witness ready to spill the truth, this isn't just celebrity gossip. There's big money, power plays, and careers on the line. The streets are buzzing, and everyone's picking sides. But the real question is, who's pulling the strings? Keep your eyes and ears open because this story is far from over. The truth is out there, and it's messier than a toddler with spaghetti. Stay tuned, because this drama is just beginning.